So now we know what promises are in theory. Let's try and use it in practice right here. We are inside our backend again, inside the chat service, and this is where we previous lesson actually tried to use this client repository and did the save. Now this is a promise actually being returned, and if you click it, control click it, you can actually see that when we call the save, we're actually going to end up returning a promise right here. So let's try and figure out how we can actually use that promise. So if I actually go here and I do a dot right here, you can see I have the different methods available that we talked about. The then method for success, catch if error, and finally no matter what. So what we'll do this lesson is we'll just try and work with these out of the box just to show you what happens. First of all, let's start with the then method. We're going to do the same thing right here. We'll do first, what are we getting back? Hopefully I'm getting back a client. That's what I expect at least. I'm going to use that client right here to do something. And right now, let's just console log him. So console log, and then let's put in the client and see what he actually looks like by adding a comma and another client right here. There we go. Now this will show him as a converted version instead of just a stupid object. So we can see what's actually inside the client. Good. The next thing I'll do is I'll add a catch. So you can actually keep going here. You can say then and catch again and again and again all the times you want. I'm going to add a catch right here and say, if an error occurs, what should I do? Well, let's just console log that as well, just to make it simple. And what we're going to do is we're just going to say console.log, and let's just do error, comma, error. And let's see that in place. And of course you need the fat arrow here. I made a mistake there. That makes sense. So now we have that available, and then we'll add the finally block right here as the final thing. So I'll just say finally. I don't want to send anything at the finally block. So I just want to console log that I'm done right here. And again, this is just the basic setup of any promise out there. You can do this. Finally called, like this. There we go. So now we have all of this available, and what happens now if we save a client is, if everything goes well, hopefully we'll hit this one. If we get an error, hopefully we'll hit this one. And if something, no matter what, which one we choose, when we're done, we'll just get this one. So let's just try and go to our application again and just try this out. I'll just create a new guy right here. I'll call him Joe. And I'll send him, and nothing happened again because we didn't actually set up our environment yet. But if we go in, you'll see it actually printed client and the client name of the guy who was just created, and also called the finally method, just like I expected right here. It called this guy because it went well, and it called this guy because no matter what, I'm going to end at that finally. What if an error occurs? What is it going to call then? How can we test that? Well, it's very easy. I'll just shut down my backend right here. So I'll actually just shut down my Docker environment. I'll do a refresh, and I'll just try and go again. I'll say hi, that's the name this time. I'll do a send. Hopefully now I'll hit that error inside my terminal. Connected, blah, 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 blah. This refused. It doesn't have access to that port anymore because it's shut down, and then it called the finally. So, and here you'll see now in the terminal, you'll see it called the error method because it hit this catch, and then in the end it called the finally method, just like it will always do in the end. Now, as the final thing, I'm just going to try and remove that catch method right there just to show you that if I do that, even though it's gone, I actually get the error thrown in NestJS, because the cool thing is NestJS actually catches all of these errors for me automatically. So happy days. Thanks a lot, Nest. But there is a small problem with this setup right here. How do we return the client right here? How would we make that work? Well, you might think you could do it like this. Return, and we'll just make a new chat client right here. So that's a chat client, and there we'll say it's going to have the ID of client.id, and it's going to have the nickname of client.nickname. So you might think this would work, but it actually won't. The problem is with this setup right here, it'll execute like this. It'll call the method, it'll go through the code, and if it gets through these guys, it'll just keep going. It'll send the request, but right away, without waiting for the then, it'll just return this right here. So you'll get the chat client, and that's actually null right now. So it will be nothing. You return undefined. And let me just prove that to you. So we need to fix that, of course, but let me just prove it to you. Right now, if we go in here, when we add the client, let me just try and do a console log right here. As the final thing, we'll do a chat client, comma, and then the actual chat client that we are returning. Now you would think, because we did that return in here, let's actually go back to the service. We did the return in here. We could even remove this just to be even more precise. You would think that now it returns this guy to us when we call that add client with the current setup. But again, the answer is no, because we actually don't wait for that guy to be called. So you'll see the chat client is undefined, and notice that he's actually being returned before we actually create the client. So we need to somehow be able to wait and stop ourselves, actually continue executing code until we get that reply from the backend, but still without being synchronous. So next lesson, I'm going to show you how you can actually wait for these calls to give replies back. That's it for this lesson. See you next time. Bye.